everything you're doing for your friend. My name's Dyann Lyon. As I said, I go red to save lives. And my story starts in just getting ready for a trip to Maui with my husband. We were headed there we're going to be there for almost 2 months, so it was just a really big deal. We'd never been gone that long. We're starting to think about retirement. And he was a little bit concerned because 5 years earlier he'd had a surgery to repair an aneurysm on his hepatic artery, which is the artery to the liver. And as a result of that surgery, he'd had 2 subsequent surgeries that were to repair hernias that were created as a result of the original surgery. And so he could feel another hernia coming on, and was a little bit concerned about the possibility of having to worry about another surgery when we got back home. So we are headed to Maui, and we're over there, and we'd been there many times before, and he just was not his self. And of course I thought it was because of the hernia, and he was tired. His feet were swollen. We'd had a friend over there the year before with us on vacation for a week, and that friend had swollen feet, so I related that to her situation, thinking it might be a tropical thing, even though he had never experienced that before. And over the course of a few weeks, he seemed to be getting more and more tired, and I kept saying, let's get you to a doctor, and he'd go, no, let's see how I feel tomorrow, and the next day he'd feel a little better. And so we did that dance for a few days, and then it was a Sunday night. I was asked him if he's ready for dinner, and he said, yeah, I'm starting to get a little hungry. And so I said, I'll make some dinner. He says, great, I'm going to go take a shower. So I was working on dinner, and he didn't come out. And I went into the bedroom to see where he was, and he was laying down on the bed, and said when he was in the shower, he felt a little dizzy. And his chest was bothering him, and he just wasn't feeling very well, and he really didn't feel like eating dinner. And I said, well, let's get you to the doctor. And this is Sunday night, and he said, no, I don't want to go to the doctor. We'll see how I feel tomorrow. And at that point I said, I don't care how you feel tomorrow, we're going to the doctor. Well, the next morning at 6:15 a.m., I woke up to this really labored breathing. Tried to wake him up, and I couldn't, so I jumped out of bed, went to the other side of the bed, and tried to wake him up, and I couldn't wake him up. So I called 911, and they had me on the phone, just kept me on the phone while an ambulance was on the way. And I gave him CPR that entire time, and it was really great. They were reminding me how to do it. I'd been a scuba diver, so I'd had CPR lessons, and when Carol talks about that, it's so true. Have since taken a refresher course and learned how to use an AED. It's so important. But in the meantime, I'm on the phone with them, and I'm giving him CPR, and 20 minutes later, the ambulance, the fire truck, and the police all arrive, and we're staying in a relatively small condominium on the 2nd floor of a complex, and so they fill the parking lot, and now there are all these, could have been men and women, honestly, I don't even recall, came in and filled up the bedroom to work on him. So I was outside the room, and they were in there for quite some time, and they started to bring him out on a gurney, and I said, how's he doing? They said, follow us to the hospital, and we're taking him there right now. So I go down and get in the rental car and follow the ambulance to the hospital, and when I get into the emergency ward, the person behind the desk said, doctor will be with you shortly. So the doctors finally came out and took me aside and said that my husband had died. His name was Oberbeck, and we'd had this wonderful marriage for 20 years, and at that point my life completely changed. All the plans and goals that we'd had, just life came to an end at that time, at that moment. And of course things change, and you never know where your life is going to go. Completely transformed my life since then. I used to be a workaholic realtor. Now I'm a workaholic in the wellness industry, and but I definitely have learned a lot about health and wellness and how to take care of ourselves, and as a result, it wasn't too long after that I came back home, had to, you know, get him back across the Pacific for the last time, and that was pretty traumatic, as I'm sure you can all imagine. And the next few months were pretty brutal. But it was a few months later, I was at a Rotary meeting in Tacoma. I used to be a Rotarian with Tacoma 8, and the American Heart Association was giving a PowerPoint at this particular meeting, and it was during the PowerPoint, very similar to the one that we showed you today, that I learned the warning signs of heart disease, and I had no idea what they were, and realized during that PowerPoint that Lee had been exhibiting those very symptoms prior to his death, and possibly I could even go back several weeks and see that he'd been exhibiting them. And if I'd known then what I know now, or what I learned a few months later, he very likely would still be alive today. Well, life, you know, goes on, and this is my dear husband right here, Wild Bill, and so I'm very, very fortunate to have been married to two amazing men in my life. So there is always, hopefully, you know, a happy ending. But it was this last summer in 2009, early in the summer, that I suddenly got this idea that all these years later, because this was in 2001, right after September 11th is when this happened, and we all know how sad we all were at that time, and so it was kind of a collective sadness that we were all experiencing. And I had this idea one morning. In fact, while I was taking a shower on a Sunday morning, I was thinking about Lee, and suddenly I had this idea to go into real estate offices, because I used to be a realtor, and talk about the warning signs of heart disease. So I called my friend Connie Hara from the Heart Association and asked her if she could supply me with maybe some really great literature to take with me if I could get into some of these offices. And she wanted to know a little bit more about what I had in mind. And she said, "Dyann, that's a Go Red for Women Ambassador program you're talking about." And I said, "What's that?" She said, it's a program with the American Heart Association, and we don't have one in Tacoma. There's a big one in New York and a big one in LA, and there's one in Seattle, but how would you like to lead one of those in Tacoma? And I'd never even considered that, never heard about it, and so we had a few more conversations. She invited people that she knew had been to the Go Red luncheons in the past and had good stories to tell, and that's how I met Carol and many other of the Go Red ambassadors. I invited some of my friends. I invited Nadine because she loves to wear red, and that's how that started. I had no idea she had a great story to share. And so our Go Red ambassador program got off the ground last fall. And this year we have been really busy. We've had the good fortune to speak to the Tacoma Public Utilities, the City of Tacoma. We were at Intel a few weeks ago, and we're looking for opportunities to speak. So we're really thrilled to come down to Olympia. It's a little bit out of our area, but we're so fortunate that Carol and Fran have a relationship, and that we're able to come down and speak with you today. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.